As Kathy said that we are here for the Part 6 workshop, and today's agenda is how to get Salesforce data using Apex. As we know that we have um, Apex as a backend language to,
Can you please make it slideshow?
yeah, sure.
Thank you.
As you all know that we have Apex as a backend language to communicate with the database, Salesforce database, and to retrieve or to perform the DML. So we use Apex in that case. And now, if you are building some UI and if you want to interact with the database in LWC, how can we do that? So for that, today we'll be seeing some of the methods and how to do that. So firstly, we'll be covering how we can import Apex methods in LWC so that we can use them later. Then we'll be seeing how can we expose Apex methods to LWC component, as all Apex methods are not automatically exposed to LWC. So how can we expose them so that LWC can use them? Then we'll be using two types. I mean, there are two methods available by LWC framework to use Apex methods. The first one is we can use wire service, and we can wire Apex methods to a LWC component. And the second one is we can call Apex methods imperatively. So we'll be deeply going in these topics right now. So going to our first slide. Firstly, we need to import Apex methods into LWC. So how can we do that? So Salesforce provides a package which is Apex. So we can use this to import Apex methods into LWC. So this is a syntax you can see here. So it says import, then you can provide any variable name from. So this is the module Salesforce Apex which Salesforce provides. And then there comes the namespace if your org has namespace. Otherwise, it will be C, and we do not mention that. Then there will be class name, the Apex class name, and then there will be the method name you want to use in LWC. So this is the overall syntax of importing Apex methods in LWC. So as I said, so Apex method name is a symbol or a variable name you can use to identify the Apex method. Then there is Apex method reference, which is the exact name of the Apex method you want to import. Then there is the class name, which defines the name of the Apex class, and namespace. If the class is in the same namespace as the component, don't specify a namespace. But if the class is in a managed package that you have installed in your org, then you need to specify the namespace of that managed package. But this is very rare. We usually use the PEX methods of the same namespace. So we usually do not specify the namespace. We just write the class name and dot, then the method name. Now, once we have imported Apex methods, but how the Apex method will be available in LWC? For that, firstly, we need to make some changes in the Apex class and the Apex method so that it will be available in LWC for importing. So those changes are described in this slide. So firstly, your method should be static. There is a keyword static. I hope you all know. Otherwise, you can just get Google it, or because it's a wide you can say topic. And either it should be global or public, which defines the visibility of the method. So it should be not be private or protected. It should be global or public and static. Annotate the method with at the rate aura enabled. So if you have already worked with the aura components, this is also the same for aura components, that you need to enable the method with at the rate aura enabled annotation. So that's the same case here. And method should also be static and either global or public. So these 2 points are same for the aura component too. Now, thirdly, to improve the runtime performance, you can also use cacheable is equal to true to cache the method results on the client side, which is on the browser in the JavaScript, I can say. To set cacheable is equal to true, a method must only get data. It can't mutate data. So there is one trick with cacheable is equal to true, that when you are getting the data from the database, you can use cacheable is equal to true only that time, because in that case you want to cache the data you are retrieving for the database from the database. But if you want to mutate the database, means you want to perform any DML operation like insert, update, or delete, the method should not be using cacheable is equal to true. Otherwise, your DML will not be happen. So, or error will occur. So as if the method is cacheable equal to true, you cannot mutate the data. So you write only cacheable is equal to true when you are getting data. As simple as that. Now, fourth point is it is compulsory to set apex method at the rate owner enable cacheable is equal to true if you are using wire service to get the Salesforce data. So if you do not write cacheable is equal to true, you will not get data. I mean the you will not get data using wire service in LWC. So this is a you can say constraint when using wire service to get the data, because wire service on the other hand using LDS, lightning data service. So that's why you need to have cacheable is equal to true on the apex method. So we have seen how can we export apex methods from the apex class so that they are visible in the LWC, and we have seen that how can we import the apex method in LWC. Now see what are the ways in which we can use apex method in LWC. So there are two ways basically. So first way is wiring apex method to components. So to read Salesforce data, Lightning Web Components use a reactive wire service. So we also know this wire as a decorator, and we have talked about it, I think, in previous workshops. So you can wire a property or a function to receive the data. Now when we are receiving the data, we have to store it somewhere. So you can use either a property, means JS field, or you can say JS class variable, or a function. If you want to mutate the data, you use function to receive the data using wire service. To operate on the returned data at the rate wire function. As I said, if you want to perform some calculation or make some logic, so use a function at the with wire. Otherwise, you can use a property if you do not want to make any changes and you want to just directly use the data which we are getting from the Apex method or database. Fourth thing is to refresh stale data, call refresh apex. So if anything, if you have retrieved the data and anything happens between, I mean, just after it or something in the backend and your data becomes stale, so you can use refresh apex, so that will do again a server call and will get the latest data, because as we know that wire service caches data. So it can sometimes it can be the case that the data becomes stale that we are seeing or we have in the LWC. So in that case, you can call the, and you know that data has become stale. So you can call the refresh apex method, which is provided by LWC framework itself, so that the that it will again go to the server and will get you the latest data. The syntax of using wire service is, so you write at the rate wire, then the name of the apex method that you have imported, and then you provide if there are any parameters or arguments you say, and then there will be property or function. Property if you don't want to operate on the data, and function if you want to operate on the data which has been retrieved from database. So let's see it's in action. One second. So let's move to our VS Code Editor. And I have created a small, LWC component so that we can have a greater, we can have a wide view and clear view of the things I have explained in the slides. So in the start I have this lightning card so that I can hold everything inside it, and then I'm showing account name, accounting name, and opportunity name. Now let's see how I'm getting this data names. Account name, content name, or opportunity name from Apex. So firstly, the this I have imported the Apex methods, and as you can see, according to syntax, we have Salesforce Apex module. Then there is a class name. We have not included namespace because we are in the same namespace, and in that case we don't need to write namespace. So this is the Apex class name dot the name of the method. So I can just quickly open this Apex class. Yep, we are right here. So this is the name. Get account is the name of my method, and this method is public, static, or I enabled, and cacheable is equal to true because we are using wire service, right? And I'm just returning any of the account that is present on my org. And there will be only one account, and I'm returning it from the Apex method. Okay. Uh, we have enabled our Apex method so that it is visible for the LWC. Now I have imported it in my LWC. Now I'm going to use it, right? So for now I'm using it as a wire property. So for using wire, you need to firstly include it here and import it from the LWC module. So just write it here, then you'll be able to use wire. And then we write the name of the pex variable I have given here. I mean, to know which method I have to use, I have provided a symbol. So, and it can be anything. I have provided as the same name of the pex method so that it gives a clear view that what is the method I'm using. So same name, get account, and then I am getting data. Now I am getting data from the database. Now I have to store it somewhere so that I can use it in the JS file or HTML file or anywhere, right? So for that, I'm getting it in the ACC JS property. Okay. So this is the syntax at the rate wire, the name of the method, and the property. So I'm right now using it as a wire property. Okay. And then how I'm using, so I'm returning the name of the account. So I'm displaying the name of the account on HTML like this. ACC, so you will get the data, or you can say the returned result into the data property dot data property. So this is the property ACC in which we are storing the result, which is retrieved from this method using wire service, and then everything is present in dot data property. So then I can use the name of the account. So ACC dot data dot name. So this is how I'm showing it on the UI. Now we have seen like how can we use wire and bind it to a property. Now we'll see how can we use function, wire, but bind it to a function, and when. Okay. So for example, I'm getting it here, the contact name, and there is a method get contact in the same class, and this time it is getting one of the you can say argument, it is taking one of the argument. So I have taken this example so that you know when we need to pass argument to the apex method. So how can we do that? For example, if you want to retrieve a record based on the record id, so you can pass the record id here and get the record, or some search value or something, anything, it could be anything, right? So this is how this example I have taken to explain how can we use, how can we pass the parameters from LWC to Apex. Everything else is same, like public, static, or enable, and cacheable is equal to true, right? And there is additional thing which is I am also taking one parameter and returning the contact which is associated with this account name, and only one contact, any random contact which is associated with this, I mean, which have the account name the same I'm passing. Okay, so I will get the account name here. Then I will pass it to, this is my the argument name, right? ACC name, which is a string data type. So I will pass it the name of the account, acc.data.name, and I have used dollar because this is reactive. So anytime this value changes, which is present in acc.data.name, this Y service will be called automatically again and will get the data from the database. Okay, and this is the syntax of using of saying it as a reactive, or using the variables which are present in JS and passing them to the apex method arguments. Okay, now as same as the property, we will get the result in data, otherwise we'll get the error. So this is a function which contains two uh, I mean, this is a returned function which is returned object, sorry, which contains two properties, or you can say two variables, error and data. So data will store the result, and error will store any error if there any error occurs. So if there is any error, we'll do our error handling. So right now I'm just consoling it in the I mean in the browser console. Otherwise, if you are getting any data, I mean there is no error and you are getting the data, then you can perform some operation in this function before. You can perform some operation. So right now, I'm doing is I'm getting first name and last name and taking it as a contact name. So contact name is a property here, and then I'm displaying this contact name on the UI. So this is a small logic which I have used in this function. But if you can have very big logics like operating on a list or something and changing something. So you can, in that case, you use wire with functions. Otherwise, you use wire property if you want to directly use the data you are getting. So I hope this is somehow clear, and this is how it looks on the UI. Let me show. So this is the account name, which is using wire property, and this is a contact name, which is using wire function. Now, one more thing. Maybe you are aware of the Lightning Data Service. So that is, Lightning Data Service or UI API. So that provides, we have, one module UI record API that provides some of the methods already, so that you can get a single record, or you can create a single record, or you can delete the single record without writing any apex method. So this is so cool. But there are restrictions, like you can use only this works only with a single record. If you want to work with bulk, then you obviously go with apex methods and wire service or imperative service, which will, sorry, imperative way, which we'll discuss later. So if you want to just get one record, for example, you have a record ID. For example, you are getting the record ID in your LWC component from somewhere, and you want to get the fields of those records. So you can use the get record method, which is already available in this module. And there is one also, get field value, to get the field value from the record return. So how can we use it? Firstly, we need to import these two methods from this already available module, and also import the fields from the schema module that we want to retrieve. For example, I'm going to retrieve an opportunity record, and I want to retrieve only the name of it. So I'm only importing the name of the opportunity here. And how can I use it? So this is how I will use it. So here we also use the wire service. Then this is the method which we have imported, right? So get record. So this what this wire adapter takes, it takes a method, and it takes the object which contains the record id for which you want to get the record, and the fields, right? So if you want to get the record, what you need record id and you need fields, right? So then it will store it in the op property. This is any variable you can take. I have taken it as op. And then if you want to show, for example, or use the fields which you have retrieved here, so that can be done by using this get field value method which we have imported above, right? So for it we provide it with the data, so which we have retrieved here. So we use this dot op dot data, as we know that everything gets into the dot data property, and then it provide it with the field name which we want to get from this record. Then it will return the name of the opportunity, and we can simply use this getter property of name on the UI to get the opportunity name. So in this component we have seen how can we use wire with property to get the record, wire as a function to get the records or something. Like you can do only get retrieve operation with the wire service, right? And how can we use wire adapter also? So this is a plus thing which I have added here. And how to show these things or anything on the UI too. So here we come with finishing the wire thing, and now we'll see how can we what are the other methods of getting the Salesforce data. So first was this wire, and the second one is calling the Apex methods imperatively. So this, I mean, the first one, wire service gets invoked on its own whenever the component loads. So we don't need to, trigger its calling or something. So whenever the function loads, the wire things happens. I mean, it goes to the database and retrieve the data. But if we want something to be done on our you can say on our action, or when we want, and that needs to be in our control, so for that case we use imperative way. So to control when the method invocation occurs, for example, in response to clicking a button, this is a very common case. Call the method imperatively and do not use while service in that case. To call a method that isn't annotated with cacheable is equal to true, which includes any method that inserts, updates, or deletes data. So I have explained like when we use imperative method. So when we want to invoke the method and it needs to be in our control, or when we want to do DMLs, right? Because we cannot do DMLs in the Y service because it requires cacheable is equal to true always for the Apex method. And if cacheable is equal to true is present in the Apex method, we cannot mutate the data. So in that case, we use imperative and we do not write cacheable is equal to true on the method, because this is not a restriction with the imperative way. And we can perform, DML operations like inserts, updates, or deletes, and you can say manipulate the data or mutate the data, right? So the syntax of calling Apex methods imperatively is, here comes the handler of the I'm sorry. Here comes the handler of the JS, and then there is Apex method name exactly what you have imported, and then this comes with the promise. So this syntax is called promise. So you will get the callback result in this result property, or any variable you can write data or something, and then you can use that result here. But if any error occurs, it will go into the catch block rather than dot then block, and you can handle error here. Simple as that. You call apex method, you can pass apex parameter here in these parentheses, and then you can operate on the result in this then block, or otherwise if there is an error you can operate on it in the catch block. So let's see how can we use this imperative way. I have created one more LWC to show you this. So let me just quickly open it, and where it is, yeah, here. So this is the HTML file, this is the JS file. Let me open the controller too. So this time the controller is contact controller. Now let's see what we are showing on the HTML file here. So we have a button mainly whose label is load contacts, which load on click of this button we load actually all the contacts which are present in our org. And the handler for this button is handle load, and we have described it in the JS file. Then what we are doing is we are looping on the context property, I mean the context we are getting, and showing the name of each contact. Okay. So we are mainly looping over the contact records and showing the name of each record. So let's see what JS file says, right? So we have this handle load, which is a handler for the button, right? And we have, yeah. So firstly, use for using Apex method, we need to make it exposable, right? So we have written it as public static and that aura enabled. I have used cacheable is equal to true, but this is on your own. You can also exclude it. But if you're getting data, it's to increase the performance, you can use cacheable is equal to true. So it's on your own, and it is not compulsory with the imperative way. And then I'm just returning 10 of the contact records. Now we have export, basically export to the Apex method. Now we'll import it. So we'll import it here from the content controller class, and then we'll use it and use it like this, the exact name of the symbol I have given it here. Then in the then block, as I said, we'll get the result, and I am passing it to the context property, which now will contain all the contact records which are written from the database. And if there is any error, I am passing it to the error property, which you can use to show toast or show it in some notification bar, or maybe just console it on the JavaScript. But it is good if the end user also knows, so you can uh, in your components you can show it on the show toast, or you can have a notification bar. So I have all my contact records in this context property, which I'm looping it on the HTML and showing the contact name. So it's similar, it's easy, right? And I'm calling this apex method on the button click. So let's see how it operates on the how it appears on the uh, UI. So we have load contacts button in the start. So if I click on it, I'll get the names of all the, not all, like 10 contacts. I have put a limit of 10 in my SQL. So I'm getting 10 contacts which are present in my org, and I'm showing their names. So this is how, on demand uh, I have, a cold server and retrieved what I wanted, or I can also, for example, save the thing, record, delete the record, or anything on a button click, or something on the action you can say. So in that case, we use imperative way. Otherwise, if we want something, for example, some records which needs to which we need to get on the load of the component, we go for the wire service. So these were the difference between these two methods. And in the recap, if I say, what we have seen is, we have seen how we can export the data. We have seen how we have seen how we can export the apex method so it is visible in LWC. We have seen how can we import it in the LWC. So the good thing is that with the LWC you can import any method from any apex class, any number of methods, right? It's not compulsory you need to import methods of one class only or something like that. You can import any method of any class, so it's on the granular level, right? So you do not need to import entire class methods or something like that. So you can import any method of any class, to be clear. So, and thirdly, we have seen what are the ways of getting Salesforce data, or you can say, you know, I mean, getting, or you can also perform DML operations in the database. So how can we do that? We have seen two methods: wire service and imperative way. Wire service happens by LWC engine on its own when the component loads. So it's not in our control. So whenever we want something to happen on load of the component, we write it in the wire service, and it only supports retrieve operations. I mean read operations, you can say. And the second method, we have imperative way, which is in our control. We can call it whenever we want, maybe to retrieve the data, or maybe to perform or manipulate or mutate the DML operation. I mean, mutate the database using DML operations. So yeah, so this is how the difference works, and this is depends on us which way we use according to our need. And yeah, so with this, I am done with the session. And here the platform opens for the questions. Over to you, Kathy.
Thank you so much, Avi, for such an insightful session. We have questions for you. The first is, what is the difference in getting records using LDS and Apex?
So as I said, like when we when we are using Apex, we need to write Apex class, Apex method, and then its text class, and so on. And if we are using Lightning Data Service, we do not need to write Apex class or something. But there is some restrictions with LDS. Like I said, we can only get one record. We can basically operate on one record. So if we want to have operate on bulk records, like we want to get a list of contacts, list of accounts, or some other object, or we want to perform DML on list of things, so in that case we need to use Apex class. And yeah, we are restricted in that case of using LDS, and we need to use Apex class. Yeah.
Okay. What is the difference between event.target.value and event.detail.value, and when to use which?
Well, this question does not come for the today's session, but to be clear, event dot detail we use when we are, for example, using events, and we are handling event in some component, and we want to get the data which is fired by the, I mean, which is given by the component which is firing the event, and we want to get in the handler component in which we are handling that event. We use event.detail, and that gives what we want. I mean, any message or something which we are firing from the child component or whatever. And even though target we use, for example, I have some like lightning input, I can say, and on change of it, I have written a JS handler, and I want to get the name of the name, the name of the lightning input, or value of the lightning input. In that case, we use event.target or event.current target.
Perfect. The next question is, what is the purpose of security enforce and SOQL query?
Okay, so as you know that by default there is no FLS enforced in a SOQL query or in Apex. So if you want to enforce, FLS means field level security, then we use this with security enforced in SOQL.
Okay. How can I retrieve account name in LWC from contact list if account name is selected in contact SOQL?
Okay, so you will get everything in the data property, and then you can use, like, for example, if your contact is in the con variable, contact variable, let's say, so you will write contact dot data and dot account dot name. Basically, you will get all the fields, you can say, of your record in dot data, or if you're getting the list, you will get everything in the dot data property, and then you can operate on list the same you use, for example, in Apex, the same you can use like that in JS too.
Okay, thank you. We have a big question for you. The wired method loads on its own when component is loaded. In the example that you took, both methods were called on component load. Now the second wired method required the account ID received in the first wired method, but on initial load we do not have the account ID until the first method is called. So does it make the call with null parameter?
Uh-huh. So maybe I have written it in one order. So basically, the compiler goes from above to below. But to answer your question, that is dynamic property with which I am passing in the parameter like acc.data.name. So maybe if initially it is not present from for any consequences, so it will be empty or undefined, and it will get as soon as it will get value, it will go to the server again and get the contact record.
Okay. Is
Mhm.
that possible to declare a variable without any decorators?
Right. So yes, you are correct, we can declare a variable without any decorators, and it will be tracked by default, so it will be private reactive by default.
Okay. Can you please show an example of refresh apex function?
Right now, I do not have one, but you can surely find it on the LWC recipes. Uh, I am sure of that. So you just need to, you can go through the, you can say the components available in this recipes GitHub project. And like for example, if you go to Force app, main, and the LWC module, so there are a lot, and I'm sure there must be some for the refresh Apex. And yeah, it's hard to find now because there are a lot, but will surely find it here. Otherwise, you can uh, maybe search, and we could have one example in the document itself. I am not really sure. Yeah, something like this. So, for example, you have your data in this opties over amount property, and for example, if you are updating any record, and then in the then block, you can use refresh apex, which you have imported in the from the apex module, and you can just pass it the record property you have from the wire service, and this will refresh this, this property thing. It will again go to the Apex and call this Apex method, and you will have the latest data in this property again. So it's also simple. So this is present in the documentation itself. Client side caching.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Avi, for such an insightful session again and clearing all the doubts. Thank you, everyone, for joining us in.